Good evening, everyone. Is that good? That sounds good. Okay. Welcome to the September edition of the Heritage Wilmot and Castle Kilbride Advisory Committee. Hope everyone had a good summer. I'll start by reading the territorial acknowledgement. We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between the Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we're reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. I'll start with minutes of our previous meetings. So there's a recommendation that the minutes of the May 14th meeting be adopted as presented. Any comments, questions? Motion to adopt the meeting? Patty and Mark. Any final comments, questions? All in favor? Those are adopted. Moving on to disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I didn't receive any conflict before. Any conflicts to declare tonight? Seeing none, move on to Heritage Wilmot business. Item 5.1 is Bridges of Wilmot Township, history for the township website. I have an update from the subcommittee. And understand, Cameron, you also have something on that item too, but maybe we'll hear from the subcommittee first.
Thanks. We really don't have anything prepared for tonight. We did a little bit, but not enough to bring anything forward. So Al will be back shortly and we'll get back to it.
Thanks, Patty. Cameron?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to provide the committee members and the member of the bridge subcommittee that is here tonight a little bit of an update on the Oxford-Waterloo Road Bridge, officially 37B. It's the metal truss bridge that was previously contemplated for removal. So I just wanted to provide the committee a little bit of an update on where we're at with that. So in 2022, Council was looking at various options and they endorsed closing this bridge, as many people may already know. And there was a follow-up report that came at the recent May 27th meeting of this year. And they presented a follow-up report and gave 3 options. And among those options, they did contemplate removal. But the option that was ended up being that Council ended up voting for was essentially what they referred to as option 2, which refocuses on essentially closing it to vehicular access and leaving it open for pedestrian and bicycle use. So essentially, the staff from Infrastructure Services Department have provided me with 2 options. So it doesn't, right now, they're not contemplating, again, they're not contemplating removal at this stage. They're not contemplating any modifications to the bridge. I just wanted to bring more so as an information update, kind of what is currently at hand here. So I do have 2 options. First, I'll just contextualize the actual bridge we're talking about if there's anyone who isn't aware of the exact bridge we're speaking of. So again, this is on Oxford-Waterloo Road. For a little point of reference here, it's obviously over the Nith River, but basically at the intersection of Oxford-Waterloo Road and River Road. Okay, so essentially the 2 options that were presented are, I'll just pull them up here, just one second so I get this full screen. So essentially option 1 is, they are very similar in nature in that they're a multi-use trail, and again, going back to pedestrian and bicycle use exclusively on the bridge. So the distinction here would be there is going to be a turnaround here, which is much shorter than option 2, which I'll pull up in a minute. And there's going to be that traffic turnaround is essentially for road maintenance purposes on the west side of the bridge. And there'll be a trail that continues on through. As you can see on the map, which is a little small for the people who are in the chambers, there's dead-end barricades on either end. And of course, the existing bridge runs over, and then through there will be that multi-use trail. Whereas option 2, which I'll pull up here, is, again, very similar in nature, but the core difference here is the multi-use trail is much longer, and there's going to be a farm access that would be relocated. So essentially, the purposes of bringing this to the committee tonight is seeking if the committee would like to provide comments at this stage, given the, obviously the history of the bridge and the importance of it, with there being no removal previously contemplated at this point. If there are any comments that would like to be provided, the thought of staff would be to have potentially members of the bridge subcommittee, if there are any comments, essentially formulate some comments, and we will bring those comments back at an October meeting for full committee endorsement. With it being for pedestrian access in the future, there is the potential that there could be some modifications and safety enhancements for pedestrians to be able to use the bridge. Again, that's not contemplated as of right now, but would be in the future. If there are any design modifications to the bridge, we of course would bring that back to the committee for discussion and comment. So again, right now there are just two options. So this is more of a verbal update. What I'll do following this meeting is provide these two sketches to the bridge subcommittee, if that's the wish of the committee, and then we'll bring those comments, if there are any, to the October meeting for full endorsement from the rest of the committee.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Ben?
No, so right now, that bridge has been closed for what, like 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah, my understanding it's been closed for at least 2 years, yeah.
And there's been no vehicle traffic over there, even farm equipment?
My understanding is it's been, I think it's blocked off, so I don't believe that there's been any access over that bridge.
So how do the farmers get around with that?
Yeah, I mean, really the Nith River naturally severs a lot of the farm properties right now. I don't think that it's set to impact any of those landowners. That'll obviously be part of the discussion moving forward about those options. This is really being forwarded on behalf of the Infrastructure Services Department. I can certainly bring a more detailed report at the next time once we have some comments. This was provided to me I think Friday, and so this is simply just serving kind of as information to keep everyone in the loop about what's actually going on with this bridge.
But most likely they don't get too much pedestrian or bicycle traffic on that anyway, because it's way out in the middle of the boondocks, right?
Essentially, yes, and that section is that bridge can't really carry much in terms of weight, right, which is one of the reasons why closure was contemplated.
Okay.
Patty?
So this is good news, for sure. Is this a bridge, in my mind, I'm thinking this is a bridge that the upkeep was shared with Oxford. Is that possible, or?
My understanding is yes, however, that's not a detail I have right now just because of the kind of the maintenance agreements between the two municipalities. It's not something that Development Services per se is involved with, but again, the idea, depending on the level of comments that this committee has, would be to bring a staff member from Infrastructure Services to this meeting to answer these types of questions, more detailed questions. This was just, again, to kind of provide that information update.
Great. Well, thanks for doing that, and we'll try to meet before the next meeting, and I guess get information back to you before the meeting, probably.
Yeah, so the idea would to essentially have, again, the bridge subcommittee meet before the October meeting so that the comments can be brought to this committee for endorsement as a whole, if there are any, with both Al and Yvonne not in attendance tonight. I did forward them this information just so that they had the opportunity. And they did provide a bit of comment, but mostly relief that the bridge is not being removed.
Good, thanks.
So I guess follow up then, you'll send just the sketches around to the subcommittee so they can take a look at it. And then next meeting, we'll have a bit more information. We can chat about it and then have comments as applicable to provide back. Okay. Great. Anything else on that topic? Seeing none, move on to 5.2, heritage properties and potential designations of properties on the non-designated list. Last we chatted, there wasn't a whole lot of movement on our top 3 properties, and we're going to move forward with contacting and looking at the other remaining properties on the top 10 list. With summer schedule, I too have not done a whole lot on that, so I plan to have another update for the committee at the next meeting. Perhaps our subcommittee will be able to get together as well before then. So I'll keep everyone posted.
Nick,
Oh, Brian?
what was the changes there that the government, they set that back an extra year for us on that?
Oh, you're a good prequel to the next item, which is actually an update from Cameron on that. If there's nothing else on that, I think I'll move to 5.3 then. So there was a discussion on changes to the Heritage Act to address matters related to the listed properties, and then a recommendation that we receive a report, HCAC 10-24, for information purposes. Cameron, did you want to speak to that report briefly?
Yeah, and that was a great segue into this topic. So basically, again, there was a pending deadline for properties that are on what's called the non-designated heritage registry, which was set to essentially expire from January 1st, 2025. So essentially any properties that were contained on that list were essentially to be removed and then couldn't be added for a period of time. The committee may recall at a previous meeting, as part of a broader call from the HCO, that Councillor Martin bring forward a notice of motion asking the province to extend that deadline. And in I believe I think it was May of this year, essentially they decided that they would extend that time frame to January 1st, 2027. So the committee has gained an additional 2 years. So I'll go over the report very briefly here. And then at that time, I also did provide the committee with an update through email, also notifying them of the good news, but we haven't met for 4 or 5 months. So maybe that's fallen by the wayside a little bit. The official amendments to the Ontario Heritage Act were in June of this year. And again, they moved that deadline to January 1st, 2027. And really what the staff has consistently been saying is ideally this committee uses their resources to pursue properties that are on the top 10 designation and continue to move down that list, ideally pursuing property owners that are have an intention and a desire to want to see their properties designated. Any efforts towards adding additional properties to the list in advance of working through the current list would really only be logical if there again is that interest from the property owner. And they have that interest in pursuing designation prior to 2027. Let me just remove this off the screen, sorry. Again, this was more of just a brief information update. I did provide an email to the committee a few months back. So really this does buy the committee a little bit of time to pursue properties that they feel should be advanced through designation and protected further, essentially permanently, through designation. And again, if, obviously Nick, if you want to add anything, I just kind of glossed over very, very few detail there, so.
No, that's good, Cameron. The part that's still in the Act is that any new properties added can only be there for 2 years, and then they have to come off for another 5 before they can be added on. So there's that consideration definitely in, current properties have 2 years from January, but new properties would still have the 2 years. Any questions? All right. Seeing none, then there was a motion to receive the report for information purposes. Could I have a mover and seconder for that? Colleen? Second? Susan? Thanks. Patty?
So I was just thinking about what you just said. So did you say current properties still fall off this coming January? Is that? I don't
No.
think so. No, okay.
In 2027.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
Mark?
I was wondering, the properties that were prepared by myself and Yvonne took the pictures and did some background, and I did the architectural descriptions. of the properties in New Hamburg, they're all prepared and ready to go. Are we contemplating putting them on the designated list anytime soon, or what are we doing with those? Because I'd asked that that item put on the agenda, and it's not here.
Yeah, I think that would fall under 5.3. I know we talked previously about it, and just given the two-year timing, it would be more if we knew some of those properties wanted to go ahead to designate, that would be a good idea. Otherwise, if we don't designate them in the 2 years, then they have to come off for 5 years, which is not ideal either. But it is kind of tricky on what to do with them.
Well, we would have time to designate them right until 2027, wouldn't we?
Yep.
Can't we do both at once? Look into designating the ones that are already on the list and putting the new ones on the list as well?
We could, yeah. I can't remember how many properties are on the list. I want to say around 100. Maybe we need like a second top 10.
You mean how many more there would be to add that are ready to be added?
Oh no, I was thinking the properties on the list now, and then the new properties too.
There's 109.
109 currently.
Yeah, so I guess what the staff have consistently emphasized is the resources that this committee have, were previously diverted to looking at that top 10 priority list and slowly advancing down that list. With this extension of the deadline, essentially buying a little bit more time to continue to look towards designation. Basically, as was alluded to already, if these properties are added to the non-designated heritage register and they aren't fully designated, then they are effectively lost on that list, and then you can't re-add them for a period of time. So what staff have consistently said is that the efforts should really be focused on properties that are either at imminent risk of demolition that are on this list, or where the property owner is very willing to designate the property. Obviously, staff are very supportive of seeing properties designated, but we do have, relatively speaking, a tight time frame to move on these properties. Obviously, in that time frame, we're not able to focus on 109, which is the reason for that top 10 priority list. And my understanding is obviously that subcommittee has been gradually moving down that list. And once the top 10 has been exhausted, then it would be looking at, what the options are for proceeding next. But staff have been consistent in terms of, what they feel as the approach the committee should take with the impending deadline and expiration, and focusing the efforts on the top 10 list and properties that, again, have a logical path to designation or are imminent risk of being demolished or lost or altered in some capacity.
Okay. I wonder if we can, maybe the subcommittee meets and we take a look at how many properties were on the list you guys did, Mark, and either update, I guess, what will be the unofficial register in a little while, or see if there's ones on there that, there's a likelihood they want to be designated. But yeah, just wondering what to do with those. Patty?
So, kind of in support of Mark there, I wonder if, we can say there are 109, but we put on all the schools and we put on all the churches. So the number of properties that are likely to want to be designated is not really represented by the 109, or by that number. And so I think you've got the right approach, that we kind of, like, it's not totally closed off, that we can look at, as Karen said, properties that are in danger of coming down. And if we can have that sort of a thing to work on, is that helpful, Marg, at least?
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's excellent work. And then I know we talked before about having an unofficial register once the changes to the Heritage Act were made. So I think even if properties go on and then come off, they would still be a record, and the township obviously has files on them and things like that. So it's not that they'd be gone, it's just what makes the official register, and how do we do that moving forward? Cameron?
Yeah, and to your point, that was discussed at, might have even been the May meeting, if not the one prior to that, that this information that Marg and Yvonne and other committee members have done in the past years, that information isn't, it's not going to be wiped, obviously. It just isn't going to have the official non-designated heritage registry title. That information is still going to be retained. It's still there for the committee members and staff to refer back onto, but we have, again, we're essentially racing against the clock. Thankfully, the clock has been extended by 2 years, but we have, several properties that are, worthy of designation on that list, if not all. And we need to devote those resources to pursuing properties that have a real path to being designated. And by no means I want to downplay those properties on Peel Street, but essentially the whole purpose of defining this top 10 priority list is so that we could focus our efforts as a committee in terms of seeking designation of these properties and hoping to get a few done, as many as possible, right?
Thanks, Cameron. That helps. Anything else? All right, so we had a motion, a second to receive the report for information purposes. Last call for comments, questions. All in favor? That's carried. Move on to number 6 now, Castle Kilbride business. So we had Castle Kilbride activities update and recommendation that report be received, HCAC 11-24 for information purposes. Sherry, did you want to speak to that report?
Sure, I can just have a brief summary for you for the past 4 months, what we've been up to. It actually has been really good visitation. We think that's in part to our Fabled exhibit, which we also then planned a lot of our special events around. So we did something new called Whimsical Weekends, which was to entice more families in. So we would have a topic and a craft that would go along with that. And those have been really, really popular. We turned our tea-in tours into the Queen of Tarts tea-in tour, and almost all of those were sold out. We've been busy at least 2 per month with the ghost walks, and those have been sold out almost every time as well. And of course our castle concerts, we averaged, or actually usually we would average anywhere from 250 to 350 on the front lawn, which was quite impressive considering we had all the construction happening out front. And we had really good weather this year, so we did not have to cancel any, which was quite nice. We've also done lots of homeschool days, educational tours, bus groups. We've got a group coming in tomorrow. We also introduced something on Tuesdays called Quiet Hours for those people who may not want to come on very busy days. And we had at least one student that would be on, so we thought that would be nice. And we did have quite a few people take us up on that. I think we had maybe an average of like 5 people per day, but it was nice that they were able to tour through on their own and enjoy it without the music playing, the clocks making noise, all of that kind of stuff. So that was quite nice, and something I think we'll do again next year. We also did Fabled Fridays too, because our whimsical weekends were so popular and we were only doing 1 a month. So every Friday in July and August, we offered costume tours, and those were quite fun as well. We had about 100 participants throughout the summer. We actually did not have too many donations over the summer. We did get a really good book that was donated. It was from 1882 from the Heldeman Tannery here in town, so it was quite interesting to go through and see all the names of the patrons that were there. And I think the last meeting in May, we had just received the wicker stroller and the water whistle that came into that were original Livingston pieces. We had we actually had 2 students this summer, one under the Canada Summer Jobs and one under Young Canada Works. And then we also had a co-op student from the high school that joined us, and this was the first time we'd had a co-op student in years. So it was really, really nice. He joined us for 3 weeks and then stayed on to get his community hours after that. He had such a good time. So it was quite productive. And then also too, you would have seen in your package, we had restoration that took place in May. And you can just see all of the work that Lori did. And what I find amazing is, you know, I'd seen those chips for for a few years, and now you go and it's like, you don't see it at all. She just does magnificent work. Are there any questions about the report? Right?
It's hard to believe it's 30 years already, huh?
Yes, indeed. That leads me into the events that are coming up. So you'll see the lovely flyer in front of you. And we're having an open house on Sunday, September 22nd to mark the 30th. I just installed an exhibit today in the Belvedere with some photos and some things dating back to those early days. So you're encouraged to come out. I know it does say that it's $5, but it's actually admission by donation.
Very cool. Yeah, the pictures of the before and after the paint, it was amazing. I was flipping through looking at them and comparing.
Right.
Also, you guys are really, really busy with concerts and stuff. Like, just looking at the numbers, it's impressive.
It really is,
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned at the last meeting too that we're now tracking how people found out about us, if they are first-time visitors, and the majority are first-time visitors. And we had a lot of people coming through for these guestware tours, these mystery tours that they get envelopes, and they'll go to places like Mountain Oak Cheese, Baden Coffee here, and then downtown New Hamburg. So those have been really popular. And then just people finding out about us through day tripping or online through our social media. So it's quite exciting, and asking them too if they knew about the exhibit before they came in, and it's been equal, pretty much equal for who knew about it and who didn't. So that's nice to see.
Very cool. Any other questions from the committee? All right, so there is a motion to receive the report for information purposes. Could I have a mover and seconder for that? Colleen and Ren? Last call questions? All in favor? That's carried. 6.2 was the Castle Emergency Response Plan. And there's a recommendation that the committee endorse the emergency plan. I didn't see a report with it, but I did see it was attached to the back of our agenda. So maybe I didn't mess up printing.
No, that was
Okay.
that was my decision.
Okay.
We had done the report for the May meeting,
Right.
and at the May meeting, I was just to ask the fire department for their input, which they gave, and they did not add anything extra. So it's exactly what you saw in May. And I just needed official endorsement for that. It's already been submitted for our community museum operating grant that was due in June, and so I just needed that official endorsement.
Okay, great. So recommendation that we endorse the Castle Kilbride Emergency Plan. Mover and seconder, Patty and Colleen. Any questions, comments from the committee on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to number 7, any announcements, information sharing, or items for the next meeting? Just kind of go around the table. Red?
Well, I guess it is September already, and we really should start thinking about Heritage Day if we're going to do it, and what the theme is and where it is. So, like we found New Dundee and St. Agatha are really good venues, but should we carry on with them? And, you know, what kind of a theme do we want? Is there any special celebrations we should be thinking about, or, you know, don't know.
Good suggestion. We should definitely have it on our list for next meeting. Maybe members can think of, just brainstorm ideas, and we can chat about that next meeting and come with a recommendation.
Yeah, I like the idea of a special topic, or like be it a community topic or a special topic that people can contribute. Like when we did toys one year, we did, you know, churches, stone houses, whatever it was, you know, and it seems to draw people out. If you just have a generic, you know, meeting, that's kind of boring. But it's kind of nice if we can have something, a topic.
Okay. Mark?
Speaking of a theme, I was thinking about barns. Through the Waterloo Regional Heritage the Heritage Planning Advisory Committee, a couple of years ago, they decided that they would photograph every single old barn that they could find in the entire region. And Bob and I did the photography for the barns in Wilmot Township. And I've given a copy to Sherry of those pictures, so there are lots of them. So I wondered if a barn type theme would be appropriate, because they're so necessary to the farming. And also the fact that farmland is precious, and, you know, that story.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I forgot that you guys had done that with all the photos and that. But that would be a good theme. I know in the past there's been like an agricultural theme. I don't know how long ago that was. Have to look. Ren?
And Nick, years ago, and this goes back many years, we had a member named Bill Dunker on this committee, and he lives right down by the Oxford-Waterloo Bridge that's closed up, and he has extensive knowledge about all the barns. He was a real keen guy about the barns in not just Wilmot Town, so, you know, Waterloo County and that. So, you know, he might be somebody to tap into to include. I don't know what his health is like. I know he's getting up there, but he's, you know, he was a real keener about the barns. So, because I know at that time we did something about the barns years ago, 25 years ago. You know, so.
Okay. Yeah, I seem to remember a theme, something like that, quite a while back. But it might be a good time to revisit it. Patty?
I think it's fine to revisit it, but I don't think it was nearly that long ago. I can remember it, and you had books, and we brought some in. I mean, I remember sort of parts of it. I think it's maybe more like 10 years ago. But I think it's a good one to do, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good possibility. Cameron?
Yeah, I did, in the minutes for the April meeting, we did have a bit of a debrief for Heritage Day, and we talked about what worked well and what didn't work well. So I can briefly refresh the committee's memory a little bit on Heritage Day and what was already kind of thrown around, and then I'll certainly add it as an agenda item for the next meeting, and we can have a more detailed discussion. But there was obviously the discussions about returning to a speaker, having a speaker at the event. So that's one thing. Potentially having it on Family Day weekend again, because that seemed to have a positive impact on turnout from what we experienced. And then, not to take any credit, this was Sherry's potential idea about a potential theme, was maybe floating the idea of the upcoming 175th anniversary of Wilmot Township. So that was one idea that was thrown around. So again, that was just a brief update, but I'll add it as an agenda item. We'll talk more about it on at the next meeting, and hopefully there's much more members here who can provide input too. But that was kind of the Coles notes of what was discussed at that April meeting for the February event.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, so appreciate the refresh. I think, Patty, you were first.
Well, I was just wondering about the date. Is this something we should be, maybe, if we're thinking New Dundee, speaking for the building, you know?
Book the date.
Book the date, maybe, yeah.
And the ladies for the New Dundee Women's
I think
Institute.
I'll be glad
Yeah,
to.
they were great.
I like those girls. They make good soup.
Yes, they do.
Maybe Sherry, for the next meeting, if you could see if there's dates we need to avoid currently. Mark, did you have a question too?
Just a little announcement to remind you of Doors Open, Waterloo Region, on Saturday, September the 21st. And the Architectural Conservancy, North Waterloo Region branch, will have their display in the county courthouse and jail this year in Kitchener.
Is there any houses in Wilmot?
Excellent.
that are open? The doors open?
I remember looking at the list, Ren, but I can't recall what was all on there.
I do believe that it was just Mountain Oak cheese that I saw listed from Wilmot.
Any other info sharing items next meeting? Sherry?
We are just launching the Arts and Culture Master Plan for the townships, so we're just getting the surveys out, so I encourage everybody to take a moment to think about and write down what your favorite things are about arts and culture in Wilmot.
Thanks, Sherry. Anything else? Mark?
Is that online? We can look at it, or?
Question. Is that online for the Arts and Culture?
Yes, it's just been launched. It's under wilmot.ca. It's called Engage Arts and Culture.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll see it when you log on to wilmot.ca. There'll be a banner there too that you can just click on the image and it'll take you to
So
that.
if you go into the website for Wilmot Township, it'll...
Yes.
Okay, thank
It'll
you.
be right there.
Okay.
And I did want to mention too that on the all of the social media that goes along with it are the beautiful murals that this committee had assisted with at the grandstands.
Right.
Excellent. And every time I walked by there, they still look brand new. They're aging extremely well. And I was trying to think when that was that we did them, but I want to say it was like 2018 or 19. Yeah. Really?
Going back to the last meeting, that guy that was building that front porch right by the bridge, I saw he tore it down. Is it finished now, do you know?
It's not finished, but the roof has been shingled and the posts are up and it's constructed. And the last I saw it, maybe a day ago, and there were just no railings and he hadn't put the cornices on, the decorative corners on yet. So that's the update as of a day ago.
Thanks, Cameron. Other update, I guess. The water lot is well underway. I don't know if anyone's been by there recently, but I see it often. And it's neat watching the additions take shape. It looks really good. Any other things, Ren?
What's the status of the B&W mill in New Hamburg? You know, I see it's sitting empty and it's been sitting there for a while. When are they going to start to do something with that? Do you know?
I do not know. Cameron?
They're working through site plan approval at the moment. It went to council about maybe well over a month ago now. But essentially, to answer your question, they're planning on doing some maybe demo work and some prep work inside, just kind of cleaning things up, ideally in the winter, spring, and then construction would be kind of spring, summer is what their current timeline is. Yes.
Anything else? Patty?
Well, on that note, how much of that will come in front of this committee as far as details, like it's exterior things, I suppose? I'm just trying to figure what we've seen already.
Yeah, there have been a number of things that have come to the committee already relating to the removal of the detachment building and kind of just some like conceptual renderings for what the building is going to look like and really endorsing the overall project. If anything is we'll continue to provide updates as they're available as they work through the construction. From my understanding, they're pretty much following what the committee has endorsed. If there's any kind of substantial changes to the exterior that they're proposing, we would certainly provide any sort of updates to that. They're still working through the kind of the initial approvals, so they haven't even got as far as kind of going through the building yet and taking anything out or kind of doing any sort of renovation at this point.
Okay.
So with that building, are all four sides of the facades included in the Heritage District? Or is it just the one facing Huron Street?
I believe it's the whole building. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, I think that's it for number 7. Next meeting scheduled for October 8th. I don't see a time, but I presume we'll continue 7 o'clock. Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn? Oh, Colleen, you get it today. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.